I think of feelings as information.
Okay.
It's data.
Okay.
Take it in, look at it. Here's the problem, especially in grief. We feel a feeling, and we have the luxury of being one of the first generations to have feelings about feelings. Literally.
Will you unpack that? Because that's really important.
I'm angry. Anger's inappropriate. Let me just unfeel it and throw it behind me. It's inappropriate to be angry. Okay? I'm sad. Oh, but people have it so much worse. I mean, look at the world. Look at what happened to Janet. Look at what happened to Bill. Oh, let me throw that behind me. And so we keep throwing half-felt feelings behind us and just carry them with us, unfelt, trying to get our attention all the time. And one of the things that our mind says is, you don't understand. If you feel like, David, if I start crying, I might never stop.
Yeah.
I say to people, I have been with thousands of people. Everyone stopped crying. Doesn't mean we don't start again in our life. Everyone stops crying. So feelings are data. They're information. They're knowledge about us. They're the way forward in terms of understanding our own psyche. And no feeling is a fact, and no feeling is final. We go,
good grief, David. You're giving me all kind of...
this is like, oh my gosh, my spouse died. I'm going to have 40 more years of sitting at the kitchen table lonely every night. Yeah, that's what you're lonely today. And you're right, your spouse is never going to be there again. You have to grieve that. But we don't know what your feelings really are for the next 40 years.
Right.
I mean, your future is not written.
Right.
But those feelings we think are written. I'm going to be broken forever. I'm going to be sad forever. Well, we know you feel sad and broken today. I mean, we actually don't know the future. So feelings are huge. In this, I'm just going to show you this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, one of the things people go, I say, what are you feeling right now? I don't know. I'm numb. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I feel numb. People think in feelings we have anger, sadness, happy. That's my choice.
Right.
I put in the good old feeling wheel.
Amazing.
Tons of feelings. I got all these exercises, and I put this in front of people, and I'll go, choose 5. And I promise you, they're like, I don't have 5 feelings. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm rejected. Yeah, I feel helpless. I'm insecure. Yeah, I'm a little, literally they suddenly find 10 feelings.
Yeah.
And they're all there. They just need to be felt.
And yeah, that new third way is both and, right? Like I have to feel these things.
And they're not facts.
And they're not the truth. Yeah.
They're not facts.
But you have to acknowledge them.
Right. Absolutely.
And I like the way you said that and just throw them behind you. One of the analogies I kind of beat to death is that we're all wearing backpacks. And man, if you don't acknowledge them and at least walk through them, man, I just feel like I'm always piling them up back here and they will find a way out.
You'll appreciate this, I think. I think of it sometimes with weights. I literally go, ooh, I feel hurt about what just happened. Okay, feel it fully is choice number 1. The other choice is I have to decide, is this a 5 pound? Is this 10? Is this 20? Is it 30? And am I going to pick it up and am I going to keep carrying it for the rest of my life?
Yes.
And that resentment's going to weigh me down. It's going to weigh me down. I can just really work through it and feel it or carry it all the time.
Yeah, that's one of the first exercises I give people is to go to Lowe's and buy a cinder block and carry it for a few minutes and then set it down. Like, right, I'm going to choose to not carry this anymore, which leads me to this. Like, if you ask, like, what's your superpower, John? I would tell you, I don't know how, I don't know why, but I can sit in the worst of it, right? In the worst. And I can sit with people and then go home. And I don't know why that is. I remember leaving the first messy shooter situation, and my dad was a hostage negotiator. So I called him and I said, "Hey Dad, what do you do when you find out your greatest gift is giving people horrific news with grace and then just sitting there?" And he got quiet, and he doesn't talk very much. He's an old Texas cop. He doesn't talk very much, but he said, "Be really grateful that you found your thing, and you better do it right." With just sense of like, go learn how to do this the right way. So that was my superpower. The reason I keep coming back to your work over and over, and you don't know this, I will just randomly put the name David Kessler in a podcast feed and find somewhere where you have been on an interview just so you hear your voice and your wisdom. That's why I sat down with a book today. You believe in people. You are one of the few voices in culture today that continue to empower people and say, "I've seen the worst. Trust me, David Kessler, I've seen the worst." And you've been open about your experiences with your mom and your child. I've felt the worst, and I still believe that you can play a role in tomorrow being better. How do you arrive there?
Thank you for that. But I also have a personal question right back at you.
Okay, all right.
Did you ever resist it?
Ask that again.
Well, let me tell you, for me, it became clear to me that I had some gift, just like you, around sitting in the worst.
That's right.
The worst betrayal, someone's like marriage is shattered, child, whatever it is, shooting. I can sit there. And then I got labeled the death and grief guy. And I remember someone saying, I was probably late 20s, 30s, someone goes, "If you're dying, your marriage is falling apart, you're, in the worst moments of your life, you want David Kessler there." And at 29, 30, it bothered me because in my mind, I wanted to be, "Oh, you're having a party? You've got to get David Kessler there." I didn't want to be the death grief guy. I wanted to be like the fun, so it's interesting. One of the things when I went, okay, that's ego. You got that. Now let's unpack this. What is that sort of gift? What is that? I walk in a room knowing that, and this is going to sound strange, let me think about this. Nothing has gone wrong. Like I know that these are the worst circumstances, and this is part of the tapestry of life and the path of life and the road of life. And I know you have it in you to survive it, and I will see that before you will.
And that to me is the gritty scratching and clawing of hope.
Well,
that's why people want you there, because you walk in and you shine a light.
Well, and I always feel like, look, the truth is, I talk about, death comes in many forms, not just grief of a person dying. A breakup is the death of a relationship. Divorce is the death of a marriage. Job loss, pet loss, those are all huge deaths. Relationship with abusers, narcissists can feel like the death of yourself.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of losses there. And so I sit with someone who is hopeless. And I know it may look, the physical death, absolutely it's true. The marriage being over, the death of betrayal, trust over. Person's death is permanent. The loss of hope that you are feeling is temporary. And I believe it's temporary. And I know how precious it is to hold hope. And I am going to hold your hope until you can find it again. I have hope for you.
Yeah.
I have hope for you to get through this. I believe we were talking about this earlier, this idea that like our modern culture, how did this happen? I always say, you come from a long line of dead people.
Yeah.
Like every ancestor you've ever had has died.
Right.
They've been cheated on. They've been betrayed. I mean, all this has happened, and you're actually built to take a number of hits this lifetime. You are built for loss and to survive it, and I'm going to remind you of that and get you through it.
That's such a voice of empowerment in a world that just tells me I'm going to be the worst thing that ever happened to me. That's my story, with a period at the end.
It is the worst thing that's ever happened to you now, here. And I hope it's the worst thing in your life.
Right.
I hope this is the worst valley.
Right.
It's not my place to know.
Sure.
And I'm just to remind you, it is a valley, and valleys don't go on forever.
Right.
That's all I want to do is walk you through that valley.
So let's talk about that pain. After the initial loss, over the years when sitting with hurting people, and sometimes it's not that night or not that week, it's a few weeks later, or maybe it's years later. I often find myself telling somebody in a moment of compassion, let that kid go, play. Let that abused kid that's sitting inside of you, let that little boy or little girl go play. She's tired of fighting. Or I might tell somebody, you got to let your dad go. He passed away 2 years ago. Let him go. Like, let him go. Like, give him peace. And I'm often met with really wide eyes. And it's this sense of, oh gosh, if I let go, not in a way of expediting grief or discomfort, but if I let them go, they're really gone. How do we teach somebody that holding on to pain or being a pain collector in a way, I don't know how to say it without sounding callous. It's almost like a choice to continue being miserable, as though I don't have permission to laugh or love or make love anymore. I have to, if I let go, I'm betraying that person who's gone, or I'm betraying the abuse I experienced. Like, talk through that for me.
Yeah, I think it is a disloyalty factor in all the
that's
books.
A great
in
word.
this, I even put like a disloyalty checklist. I don't even think we understand the amount of disloyalty we have around living again.
Gosh, will you say that again?
We don't understand the disloyalty we have around living again.
Man.
After the breakup, after the divorce, after the betrayal, after the death. Let's go to in the past, decades ago, if you had a death, you would wear black. It wasn't a style. Anyone in black, they're grieving.
Right.
Grief is what's inside of us. Mourning is what we do on the outside. It was a sign of mourning, okay? At the 1 year point, you would have a meeting with your clergy, and your clergy would say, the 1 year mark has arrived. You may continue to wear black, or you can take it off now. You take it off whenever you're ready, but beginning now, you have permission to live again, but at your own pace. There is not a moment in our society when we've gone through horrific pain, trauma, that we know, at some point, it is okay to engage in this. Even for me, after my son died, a dear friend, Diane Gray, called, was head of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation. She also bereaved mother. And she said to me after my son died, she goes, I know you were drowning and you were in the deepest end of the ocean. And she goes, you can't see it yet, but there will come a time when you hit bottom. And when you hit bottom, you are going to consciously or unconsciously have a choice to stay there or push up. And I was like, I remember sort of dismissing it, like, okay, thanks, da-da-da-da. And like, but yet the seed got planted. I often talk about planting seeds.
Yeah.
The seed was planted like the recording was made for playback later. And then later on, as I began to think about the rest of my life and think about my future, I live in a little cute neighborhood we were talking about, little cute neighborhood, little houses.
Yeah.
And I thought, I pictured 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future, the teenagers riding their bikes and a new kid moving to the area. And he's riding with the kids, the preteens and the teenagers. And they're like, what's that house? Is that like a haunted house? Like the cobwebs? Like, what's that house? And one of the kids says, oh, there's a guy in there. He was a grief expert and a writer and an author. And then his son died and he never came out again. And I thought, yeah, I could write that future. I could write that future. Okay, I know I could do that one. I'm curious about what other futures there might be. And so, and I'll tell you another thing. This is like a challenge. Obviously, when my son died, I had like a bazillion lectures planned. We had to cancel them all. And then eventually, when I was like, I got to go back and do this, do my work, get back to my work, they sent out brochures. It's been rescheduled, all that. I got emails. I saw your brochure. You're smiling in the picture. I know your son died. You should not be smiling.
Oh, man.
I had to really sit with that and go, okay, is that true? Does that feel like I should never smile again? The first person I wanted to take that to is my son.
David, yeah.
And I went, David loved my career. He loved my work. Would he want his death to like take away my smile and my, oh my gosh, that person, that's so about them and not about me and my David and my relationship? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And like, you know, I'm going to live again in his honor. And this isn't about, we talk so much about the post-traumatic stress. This is the post-traumatic growth we're talking about.
That's like the
This
big
is the
hush-hush
meaning.
thing. Nobody talks about it.
And it occurs more than
Way more.
post-traumatic stress does.
Way more.
But we don't know it's okay to not just go through this, but grow through it.